You know that feeling of self-doubt? Have you ever noticed that it doesn't really feel like a big, scary monster? It's more like a quiet, nagging voice in your head, just telling you to wait. Well, it turns out that feeling is part of a pattern, a loop that we can actually understand and, more importantly, break. Okay, let's dive into this thing and figure out how to take back control. This quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? Self-doubt isn't some big, dramatic showdown. No, it's this subtle suggestion, this seemingly reasonable idea to just delay things. It's that little whisper that says, maybe tomorrow, or, you know what, you're not quite ready yet. And honestly, it's that quiet nature that makes it so incredibly powerful. So, how do we even begin to spot this pattern in our own lives? Well, it often starts with a story, and in this case, a really surprising lesson from, of all things, a motorcycle. So, the whole thing started out making perfect sense. The campus was pretty far from home, and a motorcycle, that was just the perfect, practical solution for the daily commute. There wasn't some big emotional debate, it was just a smart choice to solve a problem. But right here is where things started to get interesting. And then a ghost from the past shows up. See, years before, he'd fallen off a bicycle. Not a big deal, a minor thing he'd long forgotten. But buying this new, more powerful bike somehow dredged that memory right up. It wasn't even a conscious, clear fear. It was more like a quiet echo of a tiny failure that just started creeping into his thoughts. And I want you to look at how this fear actually showed up. He didn't just sell the bike. He didn't stop riding completely. No. Instead, his actions just became smaller. He didn't practice as much, he was always tense, he second-guessed every single move. His entire world on that motorcycle just shrank. All because of that quiet little whisper of doubt. And this, right here, this is the big aha moment. The actual risk of riding the motorcycle didn't change one bit. What changed was his relationship to it. The fear wasn't being fed by actual danger, it was being fed by his own hesitation, his own avoidance. The less he did, the bigger the fear got. And that experience uncovered this universal pattern in our psychology. So let's take that personal story and zoom out, because it perfectly illustrates a concept that affects all of us, the avoidance loop. This is the secret enemy right here, the avoidance loop. It's the sneaky, self-reinforcing cycle. Think about it. It starts with a little bit of uncertainty. We decide to back away, and then bam, we feel this rush of relief. And that relief is what teaches our brain to do the exact same thing next time. It's a feedback loop that quietly builds the walls of our comfort zone, brick by brick. Let's break this down. First, you've got uncertainty. A new project, a tough conversation, some kind of risk. Then comes stage 2, avoidance. That's the whisper, wait. Stage 3 is the real trap, relief. The second you decide to put it off, your anxiety just plummets, and that feels good. And that feeling leads right to stage 4, reinforcement. Your brain literally learns the equation, avoidance equals safety, and the trap is set for the next time. And this whole disguise is what makes the loop so tricky to catch. Avoiding a challenge doesn't feel like you're being a coward. It feels like you're being smart, right? We tell ourselves we're just being cautious, we're being strategic, we're just waiting for the perfect moment. But what's really happening is we're feeding the loop, letting self-doubt walk around wearing this clever costume of maturity. Okay, so this brings us to what is maybe the most counterintuitive part of this whole thing. The real villain in the story isn't what you think it is. In fact, it's the one part that actually feels good. I mean, think about it. When self-doubt starts to creep in, what's our first instinct? We try to fight the thought, right? We argue with it, we try to reason with it, we give ourselves a pep talk. But what if we're fighting the completely wrong battle? What if the thought itself isn't the real problem at all? So here's the twist. The thought that what if I fail, that's just the opening act. The real damage, the thing that makes the loop stronger, is its hidden accomplice. That wave of calm you feel the second you decide to put the task off. That relief, that's the reward that trains your brain to keep on avoiding. So let's give this moment a name. Let's call it the reaction trigger. It's not the fear itself, it's that pleasant feeling that comes right after you retreat from the fear. And that is our point of intervention. It is the weak link in the chain. It's exactly where we can jam the entire machine. So from now on, I want you to try and reframe that feeling. When you put something off and you feel that little wave of relief wash over you, don't see it as calm. See it for what it is, a flashing red light. It's a signal that the avoidance loop just scored a point, and it's getting stronger.
Okay, so if that feeling of relief is the trigger point, how do we actually stop it? Well, let's get into a simple but really powerful tool we can all use. It's called the emergency brake rule.
It's so beautifully simple. First, you just have to get good at noticing that feeling of relief. The moment you catch it, you interrupt your brain's autopilot by counting down from 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then, before you can talk yourself out of it, you take one tiny step in the opposite direction of avoidance. And a small opposing action is exactly what it sounds like. This is not about being a hero. It's not about finishing the entire thing right then and there. It's just about interrupting the pattern. Seriously, just open the document. Just save the link. Just write one single sentence. The size of the action does not matter. The interruption is everything. And remember, we're not trying to become fearless superheroes overnight. That's not the point. The goal of the emergency brake rule is simply to stop the reinforcement. You're just preventing your brain from learning the wrong lesson, that avoiding things is how you stay safe. You are literally short-circuiting the loop.
And this leads us to a completely new way of thinking about things like courage and confidence. It's about shifting our entire goal for how we deal with self-doubt in the first place. For so long, we've all been told the goal is to become fearless. But that's just an impossible, totally exhausting standard. The new goal is so much more practical, and honestly, so much more powerful. Become interrupt capable. Just develop the skill of noticing the loop and jamming it before it has a chance to complete itself. And when you practice this, something really amazing starts to happen. That feeling of relief, it stops being this soothing reward, and it just becomes data. It's information. Avoidance is no longer this invisible habit. It becomes a choice that you can see clearly. And when you can see the pattern that clearly, the doubt itself starts to lose its grip on you. Ultimately, this is what it all boils down to. It's not about the absence of fear. It's about the presence of a skill. The skill to see the loop, to feel that trigger, and to take one small action that proves you are still the one in charge. That is real power. So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. The next time you put something off and you feel that wave of calm wash over you, what's your emergency brake going to be? What one tiny interruptive action can you take to break that loop?